Hello, BookTube. I figure since I'm already drastically abusing your patience as it is today, I might as well do a nice mail haul. A nice, big, meaty mail haul, where I amuse myself, and, well, the rest of you can always... There's a feature on BookTube to watch later. You check watch later, and then you can get around to it some other time. How this channel got to 4,000 subscribers, I have no idea. But I'm grateful for every one of them. So we're going to start and just go through this, and we'll see if we can keep this under half an hour. So this first one is kind of small. It could be a mass market, and if it's a mass market paperback, it could be a romance. Wouldn't that be a nice way to start? Let's see. Let's see what we have here. Oh, it is a mass market paperback, and it is a romance, but it's not the kind I usually... oh no, this might even be a thriller, not a romance at all. It's by Karen Rose, and it's called Edge of Darkness. So we start off with the boring American cover and the boring title. But who is Karen Rose when she's at home? What has she got to say for herself? Award-winning #1 international best-selling author. She earned her degree in chemical engineering from the University of Maryland. For a number of years, she worked in the engineering field, earning 2 patents, but she began writing novels when scenes started to fill her mind, and her characters would not be silenced. Wow, she had a full-blown career in a totally other field and moved to writing. Okay, so Edge of Darkness, Last One Standing, Nowhere Left to Run, whatever it's called. Child psychologist Meredith Fallon knows she wouldn't hold out hope for Adam Kimball. After a few unforgettable hours spent together, the seasoned homicide detective has spent the last year going out of his way to avoid her. But when Meredith is the target of a botched hit in downtown Cincinnati, he explodes back into her life. Okay, so it is a romance. It just has a psychological thriller type aspect to it, and the type font is small. This is actually a very big book. Yeah, almost 700 pages, I bet, in normal type font. Wow, okay, very good. A mass market thriller romance. I'm all on board. I'm not getting as many romances as I would like. As you can see on this pile behind me underneath the Silmarillion, I've had only 4 so far in January, and the month is half over. I'd really like 3 a day, but that's all right. I'll take what I can get. Let's see here. It also occurs to me that I haven't reviewed a romance yet in 2018. And that's not good. That's bad, considering that I love them so much. And speaking of reviews, I should preface this mail haul is fairly big, so I should preface it by the usual 2 things that I always want to say and always forget to say. #1 being, if you see anything here that you really want, right up your alley, then leave a comment and let me know. And if I can, once I'm done with it, I'll send it to you. So not a passing interest. Not, I might want to take a look at it. Send it to me. Because keep in mind, I have to go to the post office and pay the person money to do this. And I'm happy to do that. But not for a whim. So if you see something that you really want, then I'm happy to mail it to you wherever in rural New Zealand you happen to live. And one other little guideline in terms of basic common courtesy. If you could refrain from curt, where the hell is it emails 2 weeks later to the person who is sending you a book for free across the entire surface of the globe, that would be great. And thing #2 is that if you see anything that you feel like reviewing, let me know. I am an editor at Open Letters Review. We run reviews every day. A number of booktubers who are also editors. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So anyway, let's move on. The next one is by Matt Young. It's a memoir called Eat the Apple. And Matt Young is indeed young. And he holds an MA in creative writing from Miami University. And is the recipient of fellowships with Words After War and the Carey Institute for Global Good. He is a combat veteran who lives in Olympia, Washington, where he teaches writing. Okay. All right. So this must be about war, then. A memoir. At age 18, Matt Young signed up for the Marine Corps. You've chosen the United States Marine Corps infantry base for one thing, he says to himself. You got drunk last night and crashed your car into a fire hydrant sometime early in the morning and think because your idea of masculinity is severely twisted and damaged by the male figures in your life and the media with which you surround yourself. The only way to change is the self-flagellation achieved by signing up for war. Okay, so it sounds like he addresses the memoir to himself. Eat the Apple is a memoir that doesn't read like a memoir. It is dark, dirty, morally ambiguous, and completely immersive. 3 deployments in Iraq. Okay, all right, good. So this comes out in late February. Haven't read a war memoir yet in 2018, so this will be the first one. Great, all right, on we go. This one's nice and heavy. This could be something right up Steve's alley. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my. All right, this comes out in February as well. Not really right up my alley, although it's in the completely insulting, stereotypical phrase, some of my best friends are. This is by Martin Goodman, and it is History of Judaism. Oh, it's a lovely book. I don't know if you can tell, but it's this gold lettering. And it's a big, heavy thing. It's from Princeton. And that's just what it is. Judaism is one of the oldest religions in the world, and it has preserved its distinctive identity despite the extraordinarily diverse forms and beliefs it has embodied over the course of more than 3 millennia. This book provides the first truly comprehensive look in one volume at how this great religion came to be, how it has evolved from one age to the next, and how its various strains, sects, and traditions have related to each other. Fascinating subject. Can't wait to read the book. Don't know why cover copywriters do this. I have no idea why they do this. Let me ask you, even if you are not Jewish, even if you don't know anything about Judaism, even if you've never read a book on Judaism, let me ask you, do you think that if Judaism has been around for 3 millennia, this is going to be the first history? Of course it's not. I myself have read probably 500 soup to nuts complete histories of Judaism. But I'm always ready to read one more, so that's fantastic. I just don't know why copywriters don't just say it's really good instead of making claims that. I remember. What was it? I remember once, years and years and years ago. I think it might have been President Reagan. Some hyperventilating book writer referred to his memoir as the first presidential memoir since Theodore Roosevelt. The picture of the ghost of Harry Truman. All right, so what do we got here? Oh, no. All right, it's a made-up story. This comes out in May, and it is The Optimist Decade by Heather Abel. That is a rather eye-catching cover. I think this is a debut. Yeah, this is a debut. It's got only blurbs on the back. Peter Heller, Andrea Barrett, Margot Livesey, Nathan Hill. Those are high-powered blurbs. What have we got here? She was raised in Santa Monica, California. She attended Swarthmore College, and she's worked as a reporter and editor for political newspapers. Okay, so this is her debut novel, but she's no stranger to writing, no stranger to working on deadline either. This entertaining and supremely assured debut novel about a utopian summer camp and its charismatic leader asks smart questions about good intentions gone terribly wrong. Framed by the oil shale bust and the real estate boom, by protests against Reagan and against the Gulf War, The Optimist Decade takes us into the lives of 5 unforgettable characters and is a sweeping novel about love, class, and a piece of land that changes everyone who lives on it. Okay. All right. So did I mention, yeah, this comes out on the 1st of May, and I'm going to dive right into it. I love debut novels, and I also kind of like a little trend that I've been encountering in fiction in 2018 so far, of really solid meat and potatoes novels of a type that in previous years I have complained are becoming extinct, and being replaced by lightly fictionalized hipster memoirs and unplotted pieces of expat recent immigrant garbage, where I come from the west coast of Africa, and I was lucky enough to make it to America, and I was lucky enough to get into a writing program. I don't have any writing talent yet, and all I did was come from the west coast of Africa. It's not like I was a warlord there. It's not like I was a war bride there. I just lived there until I came here. I'm only 21 years old. I don't really have any outstanding life experiences, but I'm going to write a lightly fictionalized memoir about them anyway. The result is going to be a 122-page, incredibly boring novel that, is going to enter a 6-figure, 7-figure bidding war and have book reviewers all over the Western world straining for superlatives when there's nothing there at all. There's nothing there on the page at all. I'm not trying to entertain you. I'm not here for you. And I'm not trying to entertain myself. I don't really like writing. That's just, I'm not seeing a lot, so far anyway, a lot of weird experimentalism or a lot of naked self-indulgence. In fact, a lot of the novels that I'm reading so far in 2018 read like they come from the 1980s. They read like the heyday of sit down and enjoy this book with your heart, your brain, your soul. And actually this book has a blurb from Nathan Hill, who wrote The Knicks, which is very much that kind of book. So, I don't know. It's too early to call it a trend since it's only mid-January. But I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm keeping an eye on it. So, let's see here. What is this next one? Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. I think word has spread. This comes out in March. And it is called Waste of a Nation, Garbage and Growth in India by Asa Doran and Robin Jeffrey. It's from Harvard University Press. I mean, it could not be, but I get the impression that word has spread among a lot of the publicists that I deal with that I lived in India and that I love it, and I'm passionately interested in the subject. Because I never don't get an India book now. That's fine by me. And a book on India and garbage. That would be quite the book. It's quite a subject. In the 21st century, the problems that accompany consumer capitalism, economic growth, and urbanization confront India inescapably. While government and the wealthy aspire to clean and green India of the future, the reality is distant from the experience of less well-off and the poor. That's putting it mildly. The authors write in their thorough and convincingly argued work that ideas and practices of the class system haunt India's efforts to cope effectively with the waste of a vast urbanizing population. While countries around the world struggle to achieve sustainable futures, the authors argue, in India, the removal of waste and efforts to reuse it also lay waste to the lives of human beings. At the bottom of the pyramid, people who work with waste are injured and stigmatized as they deal with the sewage, toxic chemicals, and rotting garbage. And boy, is it noticeable. If you venture out away from the tourist thoroughfares of any major Indian city, and if you go anywhere that isn't a major Indian city, you will notice garbage. And you will, if you are an American who maybe complains that your garbage man throws your cans in the morning when he's done emptying them, you'll come back mighty grateful. You'll want to slip a little something in their paycheck for the job they do. It's really is kind of amazing when you consider how much garbage Americans produce. But anyway, so let's move on here. Oh no! Oh goodness gracious! All right, so this comes out in June, and it is The Price of Greatness: Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and the Creation of the American Oligarchy by Jay Cost. Oh my, that word oligarchy. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison helped bring the Constitution into being. Yet soon after the new republic was born, they broke over the meaning of its founding document. Hamilton emphasized economic growth, Madison the importance of republican principles. Jay Cost is the first to argue that both men were right. Oh my God, here again we are with the first. I've read 1,600 books that argued that both men were right. Hamilton's plan was the only means by which the United States could transform itself into a wealthy and continent-spanning nation. But Madison was prescient in perceiving that the result would be corruption, leading to extreme political and economic inequality. As the author shows, each in his own way came to accept corruption as the handmaiden of growth. Okay, it's a short thing though. It's barely 200 pages long. Well, I'm any Revolutionary Era book I'm up for. So that comes out in June. That's a long time from now. Let's forge ahead here. Oh, fantastic. Okay. I requested this. This comes out in April. And it sounded really interesting to me. This is by Sarah Wilson, and it's called First We Make the Beast Beautiful. Let's see here. Let me see if I can find the description that originally appealed to me, and see if it appeals to you. What have we got? Can you help me out here? In this book, New York Times bestselling author Sarah Wilson shifts the cultural narrative surrounding anxiety in a lyrical exploration that reframes anxiety as a spiritual quest and overturns our accepted notion of this mental health issue. I think it goes on a bit from there. Wilson first came across the Chinese proverb, "To conquer the beast, you must first make it beautiful," about 20 years ago while reading psychiatrist Kay Redfield Jamison's groundbreaking account of bipolar disorder and unquiet mind. After years of struggling with her own beast, chronic anxiety, bipolar disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, insomnia, and more, these words would become the key that helped Wilson better understand her condition, ultimately changing her life. In this book, she charts her epic journey and creative response to living with anxiety while examining the hard science and research surrounding it. Okay. Well, I can't wait to read the book. I am almost certainly going to argue a lot with it, a lot with it. The hard science and research surrounding that we're told, the surrounding hard science and research is almost entirely funded by the drug companies that profit by these things being real and unfixable, which is a kind of big conflict of interest, and which I think explains the fact that half the things on that list don't really exist. They don't exist as medical conditions. They exist as personal quirks, but not as medical conditions. I firmly believe that that a lot of this has been entered into diagnostic manuals and into the roster of options that behaviorists and clinical psychologists have at their disposal through money. That a lot of it has happened because of money, mountains of money, mountain ranges of money, poured into making these things legitimate by the people who sell the snake oil designed to alleviate their symptoms. If you say, for instance, what were they here? Chronic anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, insomnia, and more. If you were to say, for instance, that chronic anxiety is not real, that you just need to get a hold of yourself and stop worrying so much, if you say that, you are now, in the current cultural moment, you are now considered a horrible barbarian Luddite. And if you dig into why that's true, you realize it's because the current societal moment has been conditioned to think of these things as medical problems, like liver disease. And if you dig into why they've been conditioned to think that way, 9 times out of 10, the hand in the cookie jar is GlaxoSmithKline or Novartis or one of these world-spanning, multi-trillion-dollar corporations with, GlaxoSmithKline has 3 buildings in Midtown Manhattan entirely full of lawyers. 3 buildings in Manhattan with no one else doing anything in them except the law needs of GlaxoSmithKline. 3 buildings full of lawyers. So I'd be... I'm already arguing with the book. We'll just see. Like, for instance, what is it? She has practical tips for living with your beast, capital B, whatever it is. Cultivate a gratitude ritual. You can't be grateful and anxious at the same time. Eat to curb anxiety. Real food is your best friend. Just breathe. Embrace the healing power of meditation. Okay. All right, well, this is a book about anxiety and chronic anxiety, and that's bound to be an argument because I don't believe that chronic anxiety exists as a medical condition. I think it's just people who don't control themselves. And also, universally, across the board, when it comes to these, what I consider to be these made-up 21st century ailments, like, whatever they are, I'm sure this book has a long list of them, universally, it's been my experience, now since I volunteer at a hospital, I'm constantly, hundreds and hundreds of cases that I have seen universally. The people eat crap and never exercise. Now, I'm not one to preach. I eat crap and never exercise, but I'm also not claiming anything. You know, if I started to feel like the world was closing in on me, I might try to fix it first before I call it a diagnosis. I have met people who say, I cannot sleep at night. I binge eat horrible food. I seem to have tons of spiky, uncontrollable energy, and then it's gone. Well, you might try exercising. Your body was evolved over 17 million years for exercise, and you don't do it. You say that you eat crap and then feel miserable. Well, it's in your power to change your diet so that you are eating different things. We'll see. I'm hoping that Sarah Wilson and I get along. Anyway, let's move on. I will report back on how that goes. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. Okay, this is Joan de Jean. This is the Queen's embroiderer, which sounded like a fascinating story. It's history. Paris, 1719. The stock market is surging, and the world's first millionaires are buying everything in sight. Against the backdrop, two families, the Marjolays and the Chevreaux, rose to prominence only to plummet in the first stock market crash. One family built its name on the burgeoning financial industry, the other as master embroiderers for Queen Maria Therese and her husband, King Louis XIV. Both patriarchs were ruthless money mongers, determined to strike it rich by arranging marriages for their children. In a Shakespearean twist, two of their children fell in love. To remain together, they fought their father's rage and abuse. I didn't see the twist coming when I was reading it the first time, and it made me want to read the book. So just frothy popular history. Can't wait. And then we've got some cardboard here. We'll just forge on here. Okay. All right. Didn't request this. This is out already. This is by Mark Agornin. It's called The End of Old Age. Live a longer and more purposeful life. Unless you have chronic anxiety. As one of America's leading geriatric psychiatrists, Mark Agornin sees both the sickest and the healthiest of seniors. He observes what works to make their lives better and more purposeful and what doesn't. Many authors can talk about aging from their particular vantage point, but this one is on the front lines as he counsels and treats elderly individuals and their loved ones on a daily basis. The latest scientific research and his first-hand experience are brilliantly distilled in The End of Old Age, a call to no longer see aging as an implacable enemy and to start seeing it as a developmental force for enhancing well-being, meaning, and longevity. Huh. Okay. Well, I meet with a group of elderly people all the time, older than I am, and I had an sainted ma who got old and then bitterly old and then absurdly old and then obscenely old, and I can tell you a lot of the basics of what keeps you healthy as you go older. I mean, physical stuff, there's not much you can do. You should always have a routine amount of exercise. You should, until you physically can't anymore, you should be briskly walking around the block, that sort of thing. The older you get, the more important it is to control your diet, the more important it is to make yourself get up and exercise a bit. But mainly, the key is mental and personal engagement. Do you still have friends? Hopefully younger friends. And do they still engage you? Are you still interested in being alive? So this is actually fairly fascinating. I can't wait to read it. Let's see here. What the next one is. I used to talk about that with my sainted ma all the time when she was at Edgina Acres, Cataract Castle, one of the assisted living facility where she went. I used to go and visit her, and we would talk about what it is to be really old. And she was dumbfounded. She would routinely tell me, "Yeah, there are a lot of people here that are my age, but they seem really much older. They seem so out of it. They don't have any visitors. They don't seem to have any interests. not interested in a story. They tell the same story over and over again, and they don't tell it very well. And none of that was true for her. And I firmly believe that it helped a lot. But I guess there's a large element of luck involved in that. So what have we got here? Okay, this is by Jenny Blackhurst. It's called Before I Let You In. What have we got here? I didn't request this. This is April. Karen, Eleanor, and Bea have been best friends since childhood. They know everything about each other's lives, or at least they think they do. Now in their 30s, though their lives are beginning to diverge, Eleanor is a young wife and mother who's struggling to cope with her many responsibilities. Bea is happy being single, or so she lets people think. And Karen is a psychiatrist who, despite the secrets in her past, considers herself the anchor of the group. But when she takes on a new patient with issues she can't quite put her finger on, she begins to realize she may have put her dearest friends in danger, because her patient knows more about these three women than anyone outside their circle could possibly possess. Okay, that does sound really good. I was about to go off on this book, because the vibe of it is Before the Girl Let You In. The vibe of it is a girl book. But that, we'll see. That sounds really good. Okay, so let's see here. Next on the list here. Keep in mind, I didn't promise at the beginning of this video that this was going to be any shorter than the other two monsters that I've uploaded today. I'm just going to give it up. I'm going to give up on it. Today is a day for long videos, and a lot of you are comfortable with that. So, oh goodness gracious. Oh my. Okay, it's the new J.C. Burton. This one's called Shot on Gold. With her covers always have shirtless athletes. This one happens to be tattooed like a circus freak because that's all the fad for romance covers. Mad Dog Madigan is making his second trip to the Winter Olympics, and he couldn't be happier. Hockey is his life, and playing for the U.S. team is a privilege. Then he meets U.S. figure skater Amber Sloan. She's beautiful, ambitious, and driven. Everything Will desires in a woman. He would love to show Amber how hot life off the ice can be. And, you know, I'm sure you remember the news stories that broke about the last Winter Olympics. Specifically the U.S. Winter Olympics compound where our athletes were housed. Even the most sanitary, triple-checked news articles made it seem like just a non-stop orgy when people were off the ice or out of the water. So this book might have lessons to learn from the New York Times when the Winter Olympics stages again. That's all I'm going to be watching for, is those stories all over again. And I loved how the more prudish newspaper reporters were saying, well, you know, they work really hard. But anyway, we are going to try to wrap this thing up. So we have 2 boxes to go through, and then we'll be done. Let's see here. And, you know, and my point about chronic anxiety was not that it doesn't exist. If you've watched this channel, then you probably know my point about chronic anxiety is that it's drastically overdiagnosed. All of these things, all of these maladies, I'm sure, really exist, but they're drastically overdiagnosed. The fact that you're a worrywart does not mean you have a psychological problem. It just means that by nature you're a worrier. That's all. You don't need a psychiatrist diagnosis. You don't need medicine or drugs of any kind. You're just a worrier. That's all. I think Americans, sorry, I'm trying to fix the bouncy cam. Americans have been conditioned in the last 30 years that if you don't feel absolutely perfect every minute of every day, you have a psychological problem and there's a pill for it. And part of that conditioning comes from the massive, big pharmaceutical industry that is entirely dependent on getting people to believe they need drugs to make their life, which isn't true. It isn't true at all. 99.9% of the people on Earth can get through their lives just fine without anything that GlaxoSmithKline or anybody else like them sells. That's all. That was my only point. I wasn't trying to be intolerant. I was trying to say this stuff is drastically overdiagnosed. I know lots of people who will just routinely reel off the list of apparent psychological, neurological problems that they have, and they don't have any of them. They don't have any of them. If you put them on a desert island off the coast of Washington, D.C., or the the Pacific Northwest and told them you have to survive for a month, their misdiagnosed anxieties would be gone in favor of figuring out how to build a house. Their gluten allergies would be gone. Their anyway, let's just wrap things up, shall we? This is another monster video. Good Lord. Oh, okay. All right. I didn't request this. This is February. It's a literary tour de France by Robert Darnton, who's a great writer about books. This is a study of the world of books on the eve of the French Revolution. Fantastic. He's been leading up to this in long New Yorker Review of Books articles for quite some time. So this will just be the book that those have all been hinting at. Great. Fantastic. Wow. A bookish history. Then the last one, and then we'll be done, is this our last box. And I know I didn't make any promises about this video, but I promise that tomorrow the videos will be shorter. I'll make a point of it. Oh, okay, great. This is Angry Robot. Yes, okay. This is science fiction. A small science fiction publisher, Angry Robot, sends me. I'm on their list. I think these are for February. Yeah, this one's for February. This is it's by Jasmine Gower. It's called Moonshine. In the flourishing metropolis of Soot City, imagine a fantastical version of 1920s Chicago. Progressive ideals reign, and the old ways of magic and liquid manna are forbidden. Miss Daisy Dell is a modern girl, stylish, educated, and independent, keen to establish herself in the city, but reluctant to give up the taboo magic inherited from her grandmother. And then a fat mass market paperback. Great. Which is also February? Yes, also February. All right, so these are February releases. This one is Blood Binds the Pack. And it's by Alex Wells. Nice thick thing. So we started with a thick mass market paperback, and we're ending with one. War is coming to Hob Ravani's world. The corporation that holds it in monopoly, Transrift Incorporated, has at last found the source of the power that enables interstellar travel, and they will mine every last grain of it from Tanagawa's world, no matter what the cost might be. Since Hob used her witchy powers to pull a massive train job and destroy Transrift's control over this part of the planet, her Ghost Wolves gang aren't just outlaws, they're the resistance. Oh, so there's another one then. There must be one before this. Okay. Well, yeah, Hunger Makes the Wolf is the one before this. So I'll have to ask the publicist if maybe I can get a copy of that. But in the meantime, so that fascinating sounding science fiction. That's great. So we're going to do a pyramid, and then we'll wrap it up because this is hideously long. So we've got a literary tour de France. Then we've got J.C. Burton, Shot on Gold, an Olympic hockey novel. Before I Let You In, The End of Old Age, The Queen's Embroiderer, Sarah Wilson's first We Make the Beast Beautiful, which I admit, as you can probably tell, is going to be the first one I read. The Price of Greatness, about Hamilton and Madison. Waste of a Nation, India's problem with dealing with garbage and waste disposal. The Optimist Decade, debut novel. A History of Judaism, a great big thing here. Oh, God. Something fell. Eat the Apple, a war memoir by a free-tour vet. Moonshine, about a fantasy version of Chicago in the 20s. Then Blood Binds the Pack, mass market science fiction. And Edge of Darkness, a romantic thriller. So there you go. There we go. That ought to hold you for now. Believe it or not, I'll be back tomorrow. Good Lord, it's like 3 hours of videos you have to watch today. It's like homework. But take the rest of the night off, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.